Hello and welcome to the Flipside. I have a fantastic conversation for you today. This person, who I will let them explain who they are in more detail, is someone who I've been wanting to have a conversation like this for a long time. He's someone who, in the health freedom movement, is a giant figure, someone who is very well respected, and someone who has made an impact, a huge impact, on what we now call MAHA. So without further ado, I am going to bring into the show our guest today, Dr. Brian Hooker. So, hey, what I want to do is this. Two
Yes,
things.
sir.
Number
Yes,
one,
sir. We can get
I
to
want to
it.
show you my
Absolutely.
shirt.
Yes, it's so good. I noticed it right off the bat. Oh, it's so good.
I wore this in honor of you. So what I want to do is I want to start off by doing a little bit what we're doing here, but focus it on you. I want to find out more about you because what I know
Mhm.
about you, I knew that you were a professor,
Right,
retired now from doing that now, correct?
right, right.
I knew that you were the senior science director. Am I getting that correct at CST?
We switch things around. So I'm chief scientific officer
Got you.
now, which sounds like Spock. So
Well, live long and prosper.
yeah, yeah.
Um, and I know about your involvement with Vax, although I really want to hear more about that. But
Sure.
I'm assuming that most of the people watching my program are going to know most of the things that I just said.
Right.
Tell me more about your journey, though. I know that you have an autistic son, and I know that's probably
Mhm.
what started you on this path.
Right, right.
But tell me, give me your journey from, where this began
Right.
to now.
Okay. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. We can do that when you start rolling and or if
We
you
are
want.
rolling.
We are rolling. Oh,
We're
okay.
rolling. We do this right from the beginning, and it's casual the whole time. So we're
Hi
totally
out
good.
here in TV land. So
Surprise! You're on candid camera.
oh, nice, nice. Oh, it does say recording up there. So yeah, yeah. I'm not very observant. Um, yeah, I I graduated with my PhD in 1990 and got married in 1991. I kind of had the quintessential like, okay, we're doing this the stepwise, getting into your suburban family vibe. And I started working at a Department of Energy laboratory. It's called Pacific Northwest National Laboratory. It's in Eastern Washington, which is known for all the plutonium that they used in the atomic bomb used on Nagasaki. And so it contains a lot of legacy waste because they were, taking uranium and they were making plutonium and extracting plutonium. And this was back in the 1940s. And so, things just sort of leaked out on the ground. And so I was in the midst of helping out with bioremediation. My background is biochemical engineering. And my wife and I were very, very uneducated. I grew up in a public health family. My mom was a public health nurse who was in charge of vaccine distribution and vaccine clinics and vaccination records in Riverside County, which is one of the
Very
larger
interesting.
counties. Yeah,
Very
very
interesting.
large
Wow.
county. Um,
Okay.
and so I grew up with like vaccine information sheets just sitting all over the house, and information on infectious diseases and things like that. My mom, for being a public health nurse, was very, very chill in terms of, oh, well, oh, your sister has the chicken pox. We might as well infect you now, things like that. So it was a bit of a dichotomy but when it came, my son was born in 1998. He came out. He looked like a little man. He didn't look like a baby. Like he could have been carrying a briefcase and wearing a business suit. And so he was just so adorable. And we vaccinated him on time. We were very, very proud of that. We had read very little regarding anything except for the fact that vaccines were safe and effective. And we didn't really realize that vaccine injury was a thing. I mean, honestly. And so we were moving along. He got his first vaccines in February of 1998, going through the schedule, 2 months, 4 months, 6 months, uh, 12 months. And then at his 15-month shots, and mind you, he was tracking slow. So my wife and I were curious because it's like he's tracking, slow. The pediatrician was telling us not to worry about it. But at 15 months, we took him in and he had an active ear infection. And it was time then for the nurse practitioner to give him his 15-month shots, which would have been the Hib, the DTaP, and the oral. He got the oral polio, the little drops that they put on his tongue at that time. He had an active ear infection, and we knew because we had seen the ear, nose, throat doctor earlier that day. And being the dutiful parents that we were, we took him to his well child checkup anyway and asked her and said, look, he's sick. Should we vaccinate him? And she said, oh, well, we do this all the time. It will not be a problem. So he got those shots, went home, immediately spiked the fever, high-pitched scream. And the way that we treated that fever, Michael, was to give him baby aspirin. And then for the first time in his little life, baby Tylenol. He had never had Tylenol before. And so the combination of his genetic susceptibility, which we look at, many years later, the fact that he was undergoing severe inflammatory oxidative stress, being sick and getting vaccinated at the same time, and then adding acetaminophen, which we know does accumulate in infant brains, does disrupt metabolic pathways, and he was on that regimen for 18 days. And so, I mean, there was no way, giving his genetic makeup that something cataclysmic wasn't going to happen. So he lost all of his words. Up to that point, he was babbling and he could say about, 10 words. And he lost joint attention. He lost eye contact. For a while, he refused to walk unassisted. And in hindsight, we knew that it was a balanced vestibular thing that was going on. And that continued for about another 3 months. And then we took him to the same pediatrician at 18 months, and the story changes, and he's diagnosed with full-blown autism. So we're like, what the heck happened?
Man. And the way that you just described that was like identical to every vaccine injured child's mother's description that we've heard, right? I mean, I know you've heard thousands and thousands of those descriptions, and that scream, high-pitched scream, the fever, the loss of the words, all of those things that you're talking about. And it's an identical story,
Correct. It's identical. We hear it over and over and over again. We did when we were fortunate to connect the dots pretty early regarding vaccines and vaccine injury, and we were fortunate to find an integrative physician that we visited the first time on my son's second birthday. And this was before any more well child visits, any more vaccines. And he said, no more vaccines ever, never, ever, ever. And it resonated. And we're like, oh, yeah, okay, we're not going to do that. He said, your son cannot handle getting vaccinated. Do not do it. And started on a regimen to detox him of mercury and other toxic heavy metals. And so we were down the road very early trying to recover our son. And also that started my quest in contacting CDC scientists, first of all, to say, why in the heck would you ever put mercury in anything that you would give a baby? And then second, to understand their ongoing quote unquote science that said vaccines were safe and effective. And at the time, they were sort of peeling the onion regarding mercury exposure in vaccines and trying to come up with dubious studies, fraudulent studies that showed that that was safe. And it was very, very clear after my interactions starting in 2001 with CDC scientists that something was amiss.
Now, did you meet William Thompson at this time period? Or did you, because I'm always curious how did you guys get hooked up? Why would he have called you to do that? Were you guys friends? You guys know each other through scientific communities? What was the relationship there?
Well, it was actually at the very beginning an adversarial relationship. And I think the first time that I got on the phone with Dr. Thompson was about 2002. And we were having a call with him and another Dr. David Shea, who was a CDC scientist at the time, and talking about the thimerosal studies that they were doing that were, underway. They had not, that their sort of seminal, vaccines don't cause autism go away study came out a year later. But Dr. Thompson's one of his first statements to me was, "Oh, well, my daughter got all the same thimerosal containing vaccines as your son, and she's just fine." And you do not tell that to an autism dad researcher who's flaming mad that his kid is mercury toxic. You just do not say that. So I ripped him a new one on the phone. And at that point, that was sort of a start of kind of this love-hate relationship with Thompson. And it got to the point that in 2004, the CDC, through an attorney, her name was Deborah Tress, sent me a letter. It went to my attorney, and it said, that Dr. Hooker was no longer allowed to contact CDC scientists. And my attorney shows it to me. We have a chuckle. He replies to the CDC, "My client, Dr. Brian Hooker, has a right to contact any public official at any point in time to ask questions, about vaccine safety or anything." And she replied and said, "Yes, that's correct, but we're going to choose not to respond to him. His only recourse is to submit Freedom of Information Act requests to get this background information that at that time I was seeking."
So basically, you were calling so many times that they got fed up with it, right?
Yeah, I have a little OCD, which is fine, but it comes in handy. But they cut off contact, and the reason why they said was, "Oh, well, you're in the National Vaccine Injury Compensation Program. We were seeking compensation for my son's vaccine injuries, and so you could use any of this information for discovery, and discovery is not allowed in vaccine court." And I clarified and I said, "No, I'm just looking for any information that as a public citizen I could get, through whatever means, through the FOIA requests, through public records requests, through public data requests, through conversations with CDC scientists." And I found out later, much later, because I FOIA'd my name and my son's name in any email correspondences within that division of the CDC, and found out that they had looked specifically for my son's name, Stephen Hooker, and connected with Department of Justice attorneys who were opposing him in vaccine court.
I see that alone should have been that seems like an illegal act right there.
It was. It was. I have not taken them to task on that. It was, it was basically a conspiracy to deny my son justice. So, that's a good question. But that, at that point, then all conversations were cut off until I found out about that in 2013. Those FOIA documents did not surface until 2013. That's when I was able to connect the dots that you did something illegal about my son, and you used my son against his vaccine court case. You were conspiring in the background, and they did it to two other parents as well who were asking questions. And so I started contacting Dr. Thompson in 2013. I'm like, forget it. I don't care if they don't want me to email him. I will email him. And said, what the dude, why did you do this to my son?
And by the way, you can cuss on here too. So
Okay, that sounds good.
if it feels good to you, do it.
Absolutely. You don't have a network censor or anything to bleep me out.
Nope.
Okay, cool. So at 2013, I emailed him several times with no response. until November of 2013. And then all of a sudden, I get a phone call with a 404 area code on it. It comes in through my cell phone, um, which was, this sort of ghetto iPhone at the time. I think it was way, way out of like, the circulation. And so it's 404. I know it's CDC. I had received harassing anonymous phone calls from the CDC. I did not pick it up. Lo and behold, they did not leave a message. I did then do a reverse phone lookup, figured out that was William Thompson's cell phone, and emailed him, and that started a relationship. And I think that somehow he was conscience stricken, and I kind of reminded him that, in the balance of all of this is my, at that time, 15-year-old autistic son.
Wow. That's a heck of a story. And we're not even done yet.
So interesting. And so he had kind of laid low with this entire thing, but bore the brunt of fraud upon fraud that he knew was committed, that he knew that he participated in. And so when I started emailing him in 2013, I think in essence I ripped off the Band-Aid.
So he knew that you, I guess he figured you were his one contact outside of the CDC that he, or maybe you were his connection to the anti-vax world. And so you were his connection. So that's the reason he reached out to you.
Yes, that's what I gathered, and also my name had come up a lot because you can submit maximum one FOIA request per month to any given federal agency. So that's what I did consistently. When that wasn't enough, then I recruited family members and friends, and they did. And I had a FOIA army of about 8 individuals. And so my name was pretty much batted about a lot in the Immunization Safety Office at the CDC, in the National Center for Birth Defects and Developmental Disabilities that considers autism in the CDC. And so, because of that sort of iron curtain between the CDC and me, then as far as they were concerned, I had horns in a tail.
No doubt.
But so I think I was symbolic of the anti-vaccine movement.
I think you were probably known around the offices there as that damn Brian Hooker.
Yeah,
That's that damn Brian Hooker again.
Right.
Yes.
With if you can look at the cartoon bubble, lots of expletives. Sure. I didn't
doubt.
mind. Not a problem. So we continued conversations. Then we started really connecting on the phone in November of 2013. And he was a very, very different Dr. William Thompson. He was Bill Thompson who had a conscience. He was Bill Thompson who had kids. He was Bill Thompson that consistently, every time we were on the phone, asked about my son and started revealing things to me and revealing ways that I could get the original data that were used for these fraudulent studies. And, by January 2014, I was legally going through the process to get data from the CDC's MMR study on autism, from the CDC's thimerosal studies on autism, plural. And then Dr. Thompson was in the inside wagging the dog to get me the data. So I was legally getting this information. And in January, close to the end of January, February 2014, I started getting the data and analyzing the data. And the first thing that he said was, "Oh, start with the MMR, don't start with the Marisol." So I did. I didn't know a whole lot about the MMR vaccine at the time. And I call him up after, probably about an hour with the data. And I said, Bill, I need to talk to you about this result that I found. And this is really, really stunning. It involves African Americans and specifically African American males. And his comment was, "Oh, you found it."
Uh-huh.
And so
What was your thought when you heard that? What was your first thought when you heard that? Oh shit. I mean, what was your thought?
yes,
You heard him say
it was it was stunning because I had found that African American males that got the MMR on time were 3.5 times more likely to get an autism diagnosis than those that simply waited until after they were 3 years old. And so that was stunning to me. It was, it checked so many just heinous, evil boxes to me. And all of a sudden, he's affirming, and he then straight away sent me the documents that showed that CDC knew about this in November of 2001, the African American effect. And that's what he termed it.
So for those watching who are not up to speed, which I would have to assume that's not that many people, but if you have not watched the movie Vaxxed, that is what Brian and I are discussing right now at this point.
Right.
William Thompson was the whistleblower from the CDC, came forward, connected with Brian, and led him to discover this conspiracy to cover up data that showed in their research that there was an increase in autism, specifically in African American males, but across the board there was some increase. That had to have been, I mean, I can't imagine what was going through your mind when you first got like the confirmation there, and especially the confirmation through his wording and through your own investigation.
I couldn't sleep at night.
No doubt, no doubt.
I couldn't sleep at night. And I did, I think I was traveling at the time for work or something. And I remember I was sitting in one of those buses to go get a rental car, and I started to do this back of the envelope calculation to see how many African American males there were in the United States that had autism, that had been diagnosed with autism since 2001 until that time. And, conservatively, I felt like they could have avoided 250,000 cases of autism in the African American community, males that receive the MMR on time, based on the information that I know. This was sort of an ecological back of the envelope calculation, and I started to publicize that quietly in the health freedom movement. Sent it to Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who I did not know very well at the time. Sent it to other individuals. Sent it to congressional officials, Representative Bill Posey,
Yes.
Representative Darrell Issa, Representative Dan Burton, who was still in Congress at that time, and wanted to really start to get the word out, quietly, but not say, okay, what's the source? I had the information. I published that paper independently of William Thompson, submitted it for publication. It was published in July of 2014. And then, we had continued the conversations. We had gotten very, very close. Towards the end, before the CDC whistleblower was actually published or publicized through the Autism Media Channel, which was Andy Wakefield and Polly Tommy. God, we were on the phone probably 3 or 4 times a day. I did not want to go public that early with the information, but we were all conscience stricken. I recruited in May of 2014, I recruited Andy Wakefield and told him quietly what was going on. And then he asked permission to talk to Polly Tommy. And I recruited an attorney, Robert Krakow, who has an autistic son. And so they were kind of my team. And also a pastor at my church at the time, who was a data nerd and understood, safety, data encryption. And this pastor talked me through how to legally record phone calls on iPhones.
So at that point, you hadn't recorded anything at that point.
By May, no, I started in May, and I would meet with this pastor who was local. We would meet for coffee every week, and I would have all of my notes. He would review my notes. He would give me input on my notes. And we crafted this plan to go to Oregon to legally record Dr. Thompson without his knowledge.
Because it was legal in Oregon to do that without letting people know. Gotcha.
Right, right.
Yeah.
And I live about 2 hours away from the Oregon border. I could just stay yeah, about 14 miles across the border, little Super 8 hotel, schedule a phone call, keep Dr. Thompson on the phone for about an hour, record the phone call, ask questions that I had asked before. And a lot of times he would say, "Why are you asking this?" Or something weird would happen. I'd be in this hotel and all of a sudden a car alarm would go off in the parking lot. Like, how do I vamp on this? So yeah, I did record four, about each one about hour-long phone conversations in two in May, one in June, and one in July of 2014.
When did you or how did you get hooked up with Del Bigtree?
That was in the movie Vaxxed. And so Andy wanted this to be a movie, rightfully, from the very beginning. He started talking to me probably in June of 2014, like, okay, we've got to make this, this is just too hot to be handled. We need to be able to get this out. No media outlet is going to touch the CDC whistleblower when he comes forward. Wasn't if, it was when. And we hadn't even talked to Thompson about that, but we were, strategizing in the background. I also let, an extremely good friend of mine, Barry Siegel, who was running Focus for Autism, that became Focus for Health. I let him know. He was advising me on this. Barry Siegel had made a significant amount of money as the owner of a company called Bradco Roofing, and was retired and was running these foundations. And so Barry, Andy, and I, and then we're collaborating and figuring out what to do. The movie made great sense to all three of us. And so at one point, Dr. Wakefield filmed me on the phone with Dr. Thompson. So we had actual footage of Dr. Thompson being recorded without his knowledge.
Wow.
And then Dell came in later during the production, in 2015, during the production of the film, and was really instrumental in making it marketable and understandable to people who were outside of our, little health freedom anti-vax
Right.
milieu.
That's some amazing stuff. To be in the heart of that when all that was happening had to be. I mean, looking back on it, I mean, in the middle of things, you don't typically see what they are. But when you look
Right.
back on that, what's your thought process when you look back on all that?
It was a very difficult time for me, emotionally, because all of this was going before my eyes, coming, and I'm very thankful for Barry Siegel. I'm very thankful for the pastor at my church, because I needed emotional stability in my life, and they really, really provided it. I couldn't sleep at night. I didn't want to get addicted to Ambien or something like that. I wanted to sleep at night. And the ultimately, when the paper came out in July of 2014, Dr. Thompson came to me and said, "I'm vindicated. I can't thank you enough. I thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm so glad that this is out there." And then we had to go further because there were so many revelations. And at the end of August 2014, then the Autism Media Channel produced a 10-minute video that was released. And I believe at the time, Focus Autism then had a press release about the video. Autism Media Channel had a press release about the video. My paper was almost immediately pulled down by the journal. And the original notification of it being pulled down was that it was a threat to public health. And then Dr. Thompson produced a statement that verified and affirmed my results 2 days later.
God forbid the truth is out there, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So everything, I'll never forget that week. Andy Wakefield came to me and said, "We're publicizing. You can't do this anymore. We're publicizing." And so I agreed, and I said, "You need to give me you need to give me a month to warn Dr. Thompson." And he's got kids. He's got a kid in high school, kid in college, a wife who's a professional, who's a mom too, safety mom. And so we need to get him ready for this. And so he gave me 3 weeks. So early in August, I was confessing to Dr. Thompson that I recorded him.
How did that go?
And then all of a sudden, he was in contact with Andy Wakefield. And so everything was being preserved. And he was happy. He was mad at first. He threatened me legal action at first, and I showed that everything that I did was legal. And he laughed uproariously. He's like, "You drove to Oregon just to record me?" And I said, "Dude, I drove to Oregon. I recorded you in other, when I was on a business trip, I think it was in Northern Virginia. It's legal there. I recorded you there." And he just thought that was the most hilarious thing. And that at that particular point, everything broke. He was cooperative, and he was ready that this was going to go forward.
And here's and we're kind of skipping into the future, so we'll have to go forward and go back.
Right.
But now here's the big kick.
Mm-hmm.
He's now back in the picture again now, right? I mean, they're bringing him forward. I heard something about them bringing him forward either to testify again or to do something with him. So can you clarify?
The only things that I know right now, I haven't had any contact with William Thompson since September of 2014, because essentially his wife said, "I will leave you if you ever talk to Brian Hooker again."
Oh, wow.
And so not not to be deterred by that, Bill Thompson has found a way very quietly to still interact with the health freedom community, little bit by bit. But now, I mean, with Secretary Kennedy, I could call him Secretary Kennedy and will call him Secretary Kennedy for the rest of his life. He's my hero, and he affirms that with his actions every day. But now, because of that, Dr. Thompson's been promoted to the highest level of, GS, in terms of his authority in the CDC. And the only thing that I've heard is that he's going to be looking at childhood injury. And I do believe that's going to include vaccine injury. And so we're sort of waiting for the dust to settle and for there to be an official announcement regarding this. He's basically been kept under wraps and told to shut up and stay in a little office and do things unrelated to vaccines since August of 2014. But now he's seeing the light of day.
This is going to be an interesting year. Oh my gosh, this is going to be an interesting year. Oh, I just can't wait.
Wild ride.
Oh, yes. This episode will drop the first Monday of February. So it'll be my second episode for the year. The first episode was just me doing a report card for Secretary Kennedy, which of course I gave him an A. I like you. I like you. I'm a huge fan.
Okay, great.
Been following him for so long. We're going to be bouncing around in topics here.
Oh no, that's still things. Absolutely.
There are those who are now part of MAHA, who were never part of Health Freedom,
right?
Who only came into this essentially because of COVID. And I thank God for their existence, and I'm happy to have them here working hand in hand. At the same time, I refer to them typically as newbies because they tend to get pissed off a lot about things that they know nothing about.
Right.
one of those things is criticizing Secretary Kennedy for not doing his job and not doing it quick enough and not doing this and not doing that, usually revolving around mRNA
Right.
and wanting to get that out of the thing. And I get that.
Right.
But they don't understand truly, number one, who Bobby Kennedy is
Right.
and his heart. And they also I don't think, fully understand the monster that he is trying to slay.
Right.
You know?
No idea. And we call them COVIDians.
Ha! I love that.
So the COVIDians, they sound like a faction of the Federation of Space from Star Trek. Okay, they're from the planet COVID, and we call them the COVIDians. And you're right. You're right. I mean, some of them have made the transition early regarding the vaccine schedule. My hat's off to Pierre Corey. He had an open
Yes.
mind almost from the very, very, very beginning. Absolutely. Absolutely. He just jumped in with 2 feet and was like, I've been lied to. Um, but yeah, I mean, looking at this, and I don't want to begrudge them or like, oh, whatever. But not that you are. Um, but yeah, there are people that have been doing this longer than me. Lynn Redwood, gosh, Laura Bono, so many, John Gilmore, so many people that have been, looking at the vaccine schedule for such a long time. Barbara Loe Fisher, oh my goodness, I don't know of anybody
Absolutely.
that's been doing it longer than Barbara Loe. But yeah, so yeah, there's a perspective here, and those that have embraced and want to learn and are willing to learn and are schooled. The COVIDians that are doing that, you just you thank God for them. Yeah,
COVIDians. I love that. That's great. I'm
yeah.
going to steal that. That is perfect. I've been
Please do.
saying newbies, but that's a better one. I like COVIDians.
They're great. I mean, they're absolutely, absolutely wonderful, and so many of them, uh, as they were, and I hate jargon, but they were red pilled, and they
Oh, sure.
they took, a series of red pills, and they didn't spit them up. They just kept going. Peter McCullough, same thing. Very, very much concerned about the vaccination schedule, but they came around in COVID, and Paul Merrick, and they endured so much persecution, so much criticism.
You know, I often look at the pandemic as the thing that bit them in the butt.
Hmm.
The pro vaxxers, if you want to call it that, because they thought that this was going to be a great thing for them,
Right,
and it turned out to be a great thing for us. We had to live through the crap that was COVID, but at the end of it, the silver lining was it woke people up to the reality that they had been denied for so long. And now they're seeing it. Now they're seeing the reality. And now we got Secretary Kennedy, so here we are. Strange world.
right, right. So much has sort of pushed uh, the individuals not maybe affected by the autism epidemic into the pool,
Mhm.
and so um, it's been life-saving. It's been invigorating. It's horrible, the level of carnage level that has been foisted on society because of COVID. I wouldn't wish on any society ever, no matter what. But there is a silver lining. You're absolutely right,
Yeah.
Michael.
Yeah. Amen to what you said. It was anyone who died in COVID or suffered any kind of permanent injury from the virus or the vaccine or anything. Absolutely.
Hmm.
It's tragic. But when we do look at the silver lining, when we look at where we are now, there's God has a purpose, and
Absolutely.
we are here now on that path because the demons had to be slayed, and here we are. Um, one thing I wanted to ask you about, going backwards into your background.
Hmm.
There's a chapter in my book that is I don't even remember which point it is,
Hmm.
but it is titled "But You're Not a Real Doctor." That's 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 the title of the chapter.
Right, right,
And I put that in there specifically because, the book is all about the points that I tried to make when having arguments regarding vaccines with friends and family and other people. There were certain
right, right.
points that I would bring up. Here's this point, you got to look at it. Here's this point, you got to look at it. And one of the points that was always thrown at me was, but you're not an epidemiologist, but you're not a real doctor. You're a chiropractor. You're not a real doctor. Forget that I had 4 years in bachelor's and 4 years in my doctorate. So I've got the requisite years under my belt, but the point that has been thrown at people like myself and like yourself also, um, you know, well, how do you even know how to read this research? And you're not the person that does this type of research. So how do you even understand that stuff? So tell the audience a little bit about your educational background and training, to give them a little bit of that understanding.
Well, my graduate work was in biotechnology, and I was involved in using a different form of plants called plant cell culture to make natural products. And we could take advantage of sort of the metabolic machinery of plants to be able to do things that they don't do when they're just like growing as plants in soil. And then extended that to genetic modification of plants. I ended up getting my PhD in 1990. I taught at a small university for 3 years and did research at a national laboratory. I ended up going to that national laboratory. And my background really was in validating and verifying what we were doing in the laboratory was productive, could actually be commercialized. And, we were kind of sitting in the cusp of biotechnology. We also, I had two projects at the time at the National Laboratory. The second one was to validate that we could use natural soil microbes, natural soil bacteria primarily, that could remediate the mess that was what's called the Hanford Nuclear Reservation. And so I was on site at the Hanford Nuclear Reservation doing computational modeling that was basically epidemiology in soil, looking and verifying statistically that as we were running these processes, I mean, they involved these wells that went, hundreds of feet below the soil surface, and we were injecting nutrients and things like that, and then taking measurements, looking at microbial activity, looking at the fate of chlorinated hydrocarbons that had been in the soil for years that were heading to the Columbia River to contaminate it. We were trying to stop that. And so I was using statistics in order to verify and validate that we were going to successfully clean up what was going on. So I was cutting my teeth on all this methodology um, during that particular era through the time that my son was vaccine injured. And then I started doing epidemiology, just sort of to learn epidemiology at the same time because I was so focused and fixated on healing my son, focused and fixated on preventing it from happening to others. And lo and behold, I end up, my brother-in-law and sister-in-law had identical twin girls who then, because of common genetic susceptibilities, then were injured by their vaccines as well. So he ended up getting a master's in special education because of this. And he and I started to collaborate and looking at any data sets that we could possibly look at.
And you've also, and correct me if my number is wrong, but you've published over 70 papers.
Yeah, we're pushing, I think I'm on my 85th.
Wow. Okay.
And, now, I've published 30 different papers in epidemiology regarding vaccine injury.
One of the frustrating, I guess, but one of the things about when this conversation comes up, you're not an epidemiologist. One of the things that people need to understand is that a lot of the people in the health freedom movement, you think about the what they call them now, the MAHA moms,
Hmm.
the people who are a lot of the people that were the powerhouse, they were the engine behind a lot of this are the
Right.
moms, these moms
Right.
from the injured kids, the
Absolutely.
fuel in the fire, so to speak. And you get this PhD in research and studies just from doing your own homework,
Hmm.
from doing your own background. My bachelor's degree is in kinesiology, and
Cool.
yeah, and my doctorate in chiropractic. I didn't really, we didn't really do any kind of research stuff.
Hmm.
We looked at papers, we didn't do any research. My understanding was when I started doing my own personal deep dive into this topic, just like yours got even more enhanced with this. You start looking at the papers, you start looking at those. You have to start understanding relative risk and p-values and all that type of thing,
Right.
odds ratios. You got to start understanding those concepts that you knew from your background, but I didn't know from mine. I had to educate myself on those things. But just because you didn't learn that in a college program doesn't mean you can't
Hmm.
learn it as you go by reading papers. So
Absolutely.
I've become pretty adept at reading papers. I wouldn't call myself an expert, but I also am not a moron. I can read the papers and I can figure out what it means. So this whole idea that you have to be a medical doctor or an epidemiologist to have an opinion on this topic is moronic or sophomoric at best.
Right. We need citizen scientists like you. When I first encountered Robert F. Kennedy Jr., he quoted one of my first papers that I did with my brother-in-law Jeff Trelka, that was published in the Journal of American Physicians and Surgeons, who's that they are health freedom friendly. But he quoted our article in his Rolling Stone magazine article. And, so I had a bit of an email exchange with him back then. I wanted to make sure that, he got some good information. And he was a voracious reader of science. I mean, it
Mhm.
was absolutely incredible what he knew. And that's because of moms, citizen scientist moms like Sarah Bridges, who's a PhD psychologist in Minnesota, Lynn Redwood, Sally Bernard, citizen scientist dads like Mark Blaxell, that were doing the yeoman's work, that because the established scientists and epidemiologists were bought off.
That's the hard part. That's the hard part. When you talk to the person who's in this sphere, uh,
Hmm.
their their trust for the system, and I don't know if that's so solid anymore. I think you got a lot of people questioning now. There are still
Right.
diehards out there, but questioning the system because they'll be like, well, who are you to question it when this has been already shown here? This was actually before the science was settled.
Hmm.
That's their statement now, which is the most ridiculous statement ever made.
Wow.
Um, it's a crazy statement, right? Um, but having these conversations, I'm sure you've had as many or more of these arguments, these discussions with friends and family, some who may be ex at this point. I know I've got
Right.
more ex friends like this than I wish, because I wish they weren't. I lost a
Hmm.
lot of good friends over this topic. But the idea being that well, this paper shows this. Okay, and then it's the trust thing, though. You talked about being bought out.
Right.
One of the points in my book is, this whole idea that you can't necessarily trust. And this is, of course, before Secretary Kennedy, but
Right.
the CDC and the FDA and the NIH and all of the journals. Okay, there's been research articles long before this topic showing you the corruption in the journals. Uh,
Right.
and prior to, or right around the same time as Thompson coming forward as a whistleblower, very short, was Spider. You remember Spider?
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
Spider,
yeah.
CDC. Right.
Ta
Oh, I
Talk about
completely
that.
forgot about that. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. And that was another corruption. That wasn't having anything to do with vaccines, but
No,
it was whistleblowers coming forward saying these are all corrupt papers that were written, research that was done.
right. Right. It was the CDC censors that were, putting the frosting on the pro pharma papers to get them out, and then inhibiting and forbidding those individuals that were publishing anything except for the party line to get their papers out.
Yeah.
I mean,
Corruption
it's
upon corruption.
absolutely
And they wonder why we don't trust them. And they wonder why we don't believe the papers where they try to show you this is what it proves. Really? Well,
right.
yeah.
And marginalizing people, the scientists that were my heroes were Dr. Mark Geyer, who's an MD, PhD, and
Yeah.
his son David Geyer, who's a brilliant scientist, who would dare say mercury was neurotoxic and it's causing autism, because you're exposing children to mercury through their vaccines that they're getting as early as the first day of life.
So you just opened up a good uh, topic to kind of go down the rabbit hole a little bit.
Okay,
This is one that I actually I'm hoping to get James Lyons Weiler on the show to do
amazing.
some conversation regarding the various factors that create autism. I'm going to start it off like this.
Okay,
The other side likes to say that, well, your whole argument about autism was all mercury, mercury, mercury. Well, we took the mercury out of the vaccines and the rates just have kept going up. So, and we have our papers to prove that it's not right. So I know the answer to this, but I'm gonna let you do
right.
this.
Okay.
Answer that and answer it from the perspective also of multi-factors. To think that mercury is the
Yeah.
only thing that may have caused autism or been a trigger is not true. So
First of all, they never took mercury out of the vaccines. They moved it around. Okay. So they phased mercury out of the hepatitis B shot, the Haemophilus influenza B or Hib shot, and the DTaP shot between 2001 and 2003. So by 2003, it was very rare that you would find a vial of mercury containing those three vaccines. It was in the flu shot, and then they added flu shot to the schedule, not only for infants every year with two shots within the first year of life, they added it to pregnant women in any trimester of pregnancy. And the pregnant women were exposed to a full complement of 20 micrograms of mercury through the preservative thimerosal in the flu shot that they were supposed to get any trimester of pregnancy. That was the schedule. Okay. So what you did was you moved it around and you moved the exposure to prenatal. First of all. Second of all, the papers that were shown to indemnify thimerosal had to go through multiple iterations of flawed and, dare say, fraudulent research, where we had uncovered that they were actually cherry picking and eliminating clinics in their epidemiological analysis. This is through the CDC's large database called the Vaccine Safety Data Link. When a clinic showed a strong effect, they were able to throw out that particular clinic from the analysis. And we have that. We caught them red-handed doing that. We have tried and will continue to try for years to get these papers overturned. But you know what, Michael? And they'll say, oh, well, there's some issues with those papers, but it's really a collection of papers. Well, when you have, one turd sitting there of a paper, and then you add 12 more turds to it, excuse me, that's not a collection that's supporting evidence. That's just a big pile of shit. Sorry. You
love it.
wanted me to cuss. No, I'm
No,
sorry.
I love it. I love it.
You gave me permission to cuss. Let's
I
clarify.
gave you
Yeah.
permission. Yes, you.
Right.
I
No,
love that.
no, absolutely.
It's a
I
perfect
mean,
example,
it is when you look at the evidence that is put forward to indemnify mercury from being neurotoxic and indemnify the MMR from causing autism. It is, it's a literal sewage plant of turds flowing down pipes. That is the supporting evidence. But when you look at the evidence to the contrary, that is evidence where their feet have been held to the fire over and over and over again. And, I thank God for researchers that had the ability to do this and continue to do this. It's they are whack-a-mole. People try to put them down, but they continue to come back up.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Long
And,
answer to your question.
well, no, and I don't even think that that's a long answer because there's a far more that could be said there, right?
Hmm.
And then you also have to then add in aluminum to
Right.
the conversation. You also
Yes.
have to add in MTHFR and any issues with genetic ability to detoxify
Right.
mitochondrial function.
How dare you talk about science, you chiropractor? What are you thinking?
Oh my God. The idea is that, just because you think you can say, oh, well, it's not this one thing, so therefore there's no relationship.
Hmm.
We came forward saying, yes, it's this, but that doesn't mean we were 100% correct. We're just saying there's a problem in this general vicinity. We have to look at it.
Right.
And so just because this doesn't maybe show everything we want it to show, that doesn't mean that this, and this, there's a whole bunch of things we could look at. And
Right.
the
Right.
problem is that they don't want to look at the schedule, or they don't want to look at the ingredients, they don't look at anything with
The vaccine schedule is garbage salad. Okay.
it.
And so just because you find like this old tin can, that, and you say, oh, well, the old tin can in the garbage salad didn't produce autism, or, it's a flimsy science or whatever, or we've proven that it doesn't. Well, then you've got a soiled diaper. And then after the soiled diaper, you have a snotty Kleenex. And so you've got this collection of disgusting things to put in your body, and they're saying nothing to see here because none of the individual components cause autism.
Yeah, well, exactly. And they're saying that also, this is the other part not being said 100% either, is they're saying that without the real science to even back up that statement.
No,
Yeah.
no. I
So,
mean, they just commit fraud, and then all of a sudden they wave their magic pixie dust over the vaccination schedule, a la, Senator and medical doctor Bill Cassidy, a la medical doctor Paul Offit, a la medical doctor Peter Hotez.
ugh.
And then they just wave their magic wand over it, and the schedule is safe.
Hey there. I wanted to take a second to thank you for tuning into these episodes. And I also wanted to ask if you would take a moment and subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, Rumble, subscribe to these services. And I wanted to also show you my website. Now, granted, this website is still under construction, but you can find my link tree here on this website. And with this link tree, you can go to everything that I do. You've got YouTube, Spotify, Rumble. You've got my Substack writings if you want to read those, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. Please follow me on all these different platforms and subscribe to, once again, YouTube, etc. This really helps to support the things that I do and allows me to continue doing these things. So if you feel like you're getting a lot out of these, which I hope you do, because I know I do, please take a moment to do those things. And once again, I appreciate you. I'll see you on the flip side. Yeah. I'm feeling a little nauseous after you mentioning some of those names.
It's okay.
USA Today. I don't know if you saw the most recent. I think it was from yesterday. Yesterday's USA Today.
No,
There was
no.
an interview with Secretary Kennedy and an article on changing. Well, actually, the article was originally there's a podcast. I think it's called Crunchy Moms or something like that,
Hmm.
and they were basically talking about that as a prelude into the conversation about anti-vaccine. Um, And it was, I went ahead and bought the paper and I went ahead and read
Hmm.
it. I
Hmm.
knew I shouldn't have. I should have
You know,
just stayed the hell away. It was exactly the same as what I thought it would be. It's always the same. They start off the articles always with this kind of gloss that makes it sound like they're maybe going to do a fair article,
right.
but then they bring in Peter Hotez and give his
Hmm.
quote, and then they
Right.
pretty much make that now the end all be all for the rest of the article because he said it, because this one research study said that there's nothing to look at, then everything else is now denigrated in the
Right.
article, and they do that every single time. When is that going to
Science is not a
change?
person.
No.
Science is not a personality. There is not no one arbiter of science. There's not even a collection of arbiters of science. Okay, I am not science. Fauci, not completely not science. You know, starting out the pandemic with a net worth of between 5 and 6 million, ending the pandemic with a net worth between 12 and 14 million, which has been verified, which even, quote unquote, the other side has conceded. That's not an arbiter of science. There is no one person. Science just is sitting there asking questions all the time. And we love it because that's how science advances.
You mean it's not sept?
There is no settled science. Oh my goodness. That's one of the things in terms of like, I have a background in molecular biology, where you're finding about genetic code and things like that and how it interacts. And now, it's on the forefront because of the COVID jabs. Yeah, settled. Oh my goodness. Don't worry. It's like weather in Kansas. Wait a second. It will change.
They say that about Cincinnati too.
Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, there's so many frustrating points to this. The the MAHA movement, okay.
Hmm.
And maybe not even say the MAHA movement necessarily, but having Secretary Kennedy now in the position that he is, um, they he he's the most amazing individual to me for a lot of things, but his performance over this past year under the assault that
Hmm.
he has been under to be able to accomplish the things that he's done,
Hmm.
it's nothing short of amazing, nothing short of stunning. Uh, to think that he could accomplish the things that he's done so far with so much criticism and so
Right,
much
right,
negativity, so much loathing,
right.
just insane.
Incredible, and he's doing such amazing things as a dynamo, as and being undeterred by, what the press trots out, what things are going on. My only complaint is I lost my Bobby time. And so I'm totally bummed because I don't get to talk to him on the phone, because we're working together for so many years. We've been in close quarters since 2015. And, quite honestly, he's doing better things that are absolutely right. But my grubby self-interests are not getting satisfied.
I can I can't relate to that from an actual standpoint because I've never had any personal Bobby time, but I've met him a couple of times
Right.
in person, and he is uh, such a sincere individual. When you think about his background and his education and everything, he could easily come across as standoffish and
Hmm.
everything else, but he's so personable and
Hmm.
so polite and nice, and his heart is definitely in the right place and in going in the right direction. So
Hmm.
uh, I I admire him uh, greatly.
Right.
And this next year, this year right now, I shouldn't say this next year, the year we're in. Do you have now? This may be like giving away uh, pieces of a movie that you don't want someone to know about, but
Hmm.
you have a bit of an inside track. You
Okay.
know Maha's purpose. You're
Right.
right there with it, working on it. What can we expect this year in the realm of vaccines?
Well, let's take a step back. This is hands down one of the most compassionate individuals, yeah, I've ever met whatsoever. He
Agreed.
wants to save kids. He wants to save kids. It is that simple. Okay. There's not a shred of like, financial remuneration that he's trying to get. I think all of his kids are all out of college. He's not paying tuition. They're absolutely amazing, have nothing but great things to say about their dad. I'm thankful, that I've interacted. I've met all of his kids. I've never, I've only got to spend time, quality time with a few of them. But his the first time that he met my and had time in earnest with me, I brought my family. And he was all about my son. He's like, oh my goodness, we had a very wealthy individual fly us up to kill a bill in Oregon, a vaccine mandate bill. And so he shows up in a plane at Reading Airport. And the first thing is like, oh, we got to show your son the plane. He really did this. And, focus so much about the kids. And then I can tell you story after story about how he lost revenue when he took on this issue and how he lost personal finances. He took on this issue, but he grabbed hold of it and he's like, I cannot unsee what I've seen. I'm sorry. No, I don't care. About the loss of financial remuneration. And so here's somebody that we have at the helm protecting our children. I think that we're going to see more on acetaminophen. I know that acetaminophen gets into infant brains. It forms what's called an adduct, so it binds directly to metabolic proteins in the brain, and it hastens and causes frank brain damage in those infants. We will know more. We already know more because of studies that Children's Health Defense has sponsored that are ongoing, that will be published soon, that show that damage, that show where the acetaminophen goes, regardless of what the other side trots out about how healthy it is in pregnancy. It's not healthy in pregnancy, but it's actually worse in neonatal conditions. Once that cord is cut and acetaminophen, baby Tylenol, baby whatever generic brand of acetaminophen, it does serious damage, and it is directly connected to autism, and it is directly connected to developmental delays. So we will see more on that, and then we will see more on mechanistically how vaccines can and do cause autism. And from a variety of sources. It's not coming directly from CHD, but from a variety of sources. And the secretary responds to science. He responds to good science. And so we will continue to see evaluations of the vaccination schedule in order to keep kids from getting chronic diseases. I mean, this is just the first part of it, and we have individuals that care more about kids than money in ACIP. We have Robert Malone. We have Retsef Levy,
That's yeah.
Amazing mind from MIT who has published on this subject and survived from MIT. We have Evelyn, I forget her last name. Why am I spacing on her last name? And now the Surgeon General from Louisiana.
Louisiana, exactly.
And I'll remember her last name in a minute. But just, a luminary and these individuals are sitting down
Evelyn
with
Griffin.
Griffin. I thank you
Yeah.
so much.
Yeah.
Martin Kulldorff, who lost so much because he just wanted to tell the truth. Other individuals who have just been marginalized left and right in these positions, Jay Bhattacharya, Marty McCary, Mehmet Oz, all these individuals. And really, I've had the privilege of meeting Dr. Bhattacharya. I had the privilege of meeting and spending time with Dr. Oz. They care about kids. They want this fixed. They're seeing the chronic disease epidemic. They're seeing the writing on the wall and avoiding the fear porn of measles and the fact and really looking at the fact that the two girls that died, from Seminole, Texas, died because of medical error. Children's Health Defense, we're looking at those records. We were given permission directly by the parents to look at those records, and so they're not being deterred by the fear porn. Whatever the source of measles, blowing through Texas, now blowing through South Carolina. They're not deterred by this. Ralph Abraham has quoted, directly on this about, looking at treatment options for these infectious diseases so we can give parents freedom of choice and so they can get the correct medicine for that particular child. And so medicine's going to become more individualized. The vaccine schedule is going to become more scrutinized, and anything, environmental on the table that will harm children will be looked at and will be remediated.
This information with acetaminophen, of course, now they trumped out, they brought out their new study to show that everything's okay with it.
Right.
And of course, they published it or publicized it as, okay, well, now it's settled. Since it wasn't settled before, now it's settled.
They're not even looking at the right place.
Oh, well, and the effects of acetaminophen on the liver and glutathione,
Right.
that whole idea of affecting detox pathways, the MTHFR gene
Right.
is part of that as well. So when you think about those factors, so why did this child get autism with the same vaccines, but this one did not? Well,
Right.
yes, there may be a genetic predisposition to certain things, but they have to have a trigger. And so to say that vaccines aren't a trigger is a ridiculous statement. And so this child has whatever, maybe they had the MTHFR gene, maybe they had excessive acetaminophen in their system somehow or whatever. Those two combinations creating a problem with the body's ability to detox properly from all the crap that you just talked about, the dirty diaper and everything in there.
Right. Yeah.
And here you have this perfect cocktail to create a problem, right?
We have people. I'm sorry for interrupting.
No, please go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. We have people like, let me tell you about Dr. William Parker. Okay. I've known Dr. William Parker for almost 3 years now, personally. The first time I met him, went on a camping trip with him. All we did was talk about acetaminophen. He was a researcher at Duke University. He was retired from Duke University because he believes in the truth and he believes in science and the scientific method and not in money. I mean, he could have taken money from, J&J, Kenvue, Kimberly-Clark, whoever, this week owns Tylenol, and he could have shut up. I mean, he could have very easily been an expert witness and just lied, because people do that. No, William Parker is, you look at the research that he has done, that he has dared to do when he was sacrificed his cushy job, his cushy salary, and, basically does work at the University of North Carolina for free, being supported by a foundation called WP Lab. He's being paid peanuts, and he will single-handedly save a huge percentage of children from ever getting autism because he speaks the truth about acetaminophen.
Yeah.
When I talk to him, I'm on the phone. I'm like, William, let's get this out here so we can save some children. And he's very, very modest. He will never say that himself. He's so modest. One, such a huge Christian brother, such a luminary. His laboratory, before he was marginalized as acetaminophen, discovered the purpose of the appendix. He is that smart, and all he wants to do is save children. And I get on the phone with him and like, okay, let's blow this open and save some children. He's like, let's do it. And he drives around in like, what's that really, really small Honda? It's like it's a Fit. Is it called a Fit? Because that's the car that he can afford, um, because he cares about children way more than he cares about money.
Yeah.
These are the people, that our society they need to know about these people.
Oh, I agree. I agree. And that's one of the so to me humorous arguments is look at all the money that these anti-vaxxers are making off of what they do.
Well,
What
it's so
money are you
cool.
talking about?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, yeah.
Uh,
My goodness. My limo is waiting outside.
exactly. Um, it, that brings up a question, and I know what my answer on this is. I'm really curious to hear what your answer on this is. I have a feeling it's going to be very similar. Um, when you think of the motivation of the other side
Hmm.
and why they fight tooth and nail to the death to protect uh, an idea that's rapidly going down the drain. The ship
Right.
is sinking.
Hmm.
But the rats on that ship are fighting really hard to keep that ship upright. And instead of going along with it or doing the right thing, they are fighting harder now. They're fighting harder and even dirtier.
Right. Hmm.
What's the motivation?
I think that personal culpability for that. I mean, I look at some of these individuals that are giving interviews and their countenance has changed and become so sort of disfigured, over the whole MAHA movement that, I look at individuals like Peter Hotez, Paul Offit, so many others, Dora Rice, and I fear through them like, oh my goodness, if your face screws up anymore, you're gonna have an aneurysm on screen. You need Botox all over.
Uh,
Relax. Okay. The truth will set you free. Let's look at these things. Let's stop being, the guy behind the curtain in The Wizard of Oz. It is time to relent. It is time to tell the truth and question things and absolutely ask some questions. I mean, nothing could be more scientific than the gift of a question. And so, seeing them fight and double over their efforts to the point, where people who are so deceived are, having their social media minute, by taking Tylenol while they're pregnant. That just breaks my heart.
yeah, I wonder how much of that is staged. Basically, it's theatrical that
Right,
they're
right,
getting
yeah.
someone to do it. And I one thing I've always said with this is and I know that there's certain legal points to this that are going to maybe make some of what I'm going to say moot, but
Hmm.
um, if it were to finally come out that there is a direct link between vaccines and autism, and if it were to come out that there were people all along that knew this happened, that knew this existed, that the entire industry would collapse. That entire industry would collapse. And it's a billions and billions of dollars industry. And not only would it collapse, but the public would be up in arms saying, you owe us money. You owe
Hmm.
us money. You need to pay for this. You need to pay for that. And that's even more money now being pulled from
Right.
the system. So there's a financial uh, incentive for them to fight tooth and nail. Uh,
Hmm. For the midterms, for the midterm elections, for 2026. We're here, for 2028, and continuing on, so much motivation to, fight against this wave, of lots and lots of truth. And so, not getting political about it. I mean, I loathe politics. Absolutely,
I'm
absolutely
with you, my friend. I'm
cannot
with you.
stand, cannot stand politics. When I was 14, I was a Senate page, okay, in the United States Senate for a senator, a one-term senator named Sam Hayakawa from California, and I was inoculated against politics. And my 6 months experience of being a page in the Senate when I was 14 years old was a vaccine against politics. I loathe politics. I learned a lot about things I didn't like. And one of the things that I found out I didn't like was politics and raisins. Raisins are the devil. Politics, same. Do not like raisins.
I get that.
Yes.
uh,
No, no. So talking about midterms and talking about, the next presidential elections, it does not do my heart good. But these people, they're fighting tooth and nail. I mean, but there are luminaries that are creating cures and creating things that are not, lifetimes of medications for you, your children, your elderly parents, whatever. And they need to come to the forefront, and the individuals that are harming people and have known for years and years and years and years that they're harming people. Dr. Colleen Boyle knows that vaccines cause autism. Dr. Frank DiStefano, he knows that vaccines cause autism. Dr. Julie Gerberding, she knows that vaccines cause autism.
100%.
They all know. And you know what? It's time that these individuals are held to account, whether they go to jail or not, whatever. I do, when I squint, I can see some of them in orange jumpsuits. But you know what? I want my son to be taken care of. That's really, really, what I want. I want my son to be taken care of far beyond when my wife and I are worm food.
Yeah, absolutely.
So clean up your mess. Compensate those individuals that have been injured. They deserve it. They need it. Justice has been withheld. Sorry.
1,000%, 1,000%. There has been conversation about Secretary Kennedy getting rid of pharma advertising. I hope to God that happens and it happens quickly. I think that is, if not the number one thing, it is very damn close to being the number one thing that would turn this thing around. Because if you can take the money out of the media that is corrupted, maybe the media can get its act together and get back to doing what it's supposed to do and actually report the truth, or at least report both sides. And now you don't have that. You don't have that at all. And it's gotten worse, since 2015 or
Right.
greater. It's gotten worse and worse and worse to where now you don't get that information. And that has to change for us to make the changes we want to do.
We tried so hard to get a major network affiliate to talk about the CDC whistleblower. And the story was killed by a producer at Fox. I was working directly with, bless his heart, John Roberts. Okay, let's just come right out. John Roberts wanted to cover this story. The CDC whistleblower himself got on the phone with Dr. Mark Siegel, and I think that Dr. Siegel killed the story. I cannot say that for 100% certain. I just know that they had a conversation, and then that sucker was dead. And so we tried to get any network. And then, you know what? The same time that the CDC whistleblower came out with a statement in late August of 2014, the journal, Translational Neurodegeneration, got pressured to take down my paper. Okay, so it was withdrawn, and then it was finally officially retracted in October of 2014, about 6 weeks later. And then the mainstream media story was about debunked scientist Dr. Brian Hooker, who had his paper retracted.
Oh, that's all just circumstantial.
Yeah. Yeah, right. Yeah. And the original statement when the paper was put down was that my paper was a threat to public health. And then our statement was quickly about 48 hours later, then they had trumped up something about a conflict of interest that with the funder of the study, Focus Autism, and that I had an undisclosed conflict of interest that was absolutely false, absolutely positively false. And when I went to the journal and said, look, Focus Autism has an error on the website, I'm sorry, somebody pointed out something that isn't true on the internet. Not everything on the internet is true. Focus Autism very, very quickly and carefully corrected their website, but I never had an undisclosed conflict of interest. And at that point, it was just too late.
And we both know that if conflict of interest was really that big of a deal to them, they wouldn't publish probably 80% of the papers that they publish.
Yeah, conflict of interest is the reason why, Secretary Kennedy cleaned house on ASIP. People were on the take.
Yeah, I mean, that was one of the points I made in my last episode was that, he got all this flack for not him personally, but
Right.
thousands of people getting fired. But you know what? If you're going to clean the sewer, you got to clean the sewer. You got to get rid of, you got to break some eggs to make an omelet. Well, there you go.
Hmm. Right, right. When you take a fire hose to clean the sewer, I mean, there people are going to get swept away. I mean,
Yeah.
and people that were making lots of money, regarding these decisions that were affecting the health of children and adults and elderly people and minorities and underserved communities and.
Yeah. Well, good riddance to bad rubbish, as they say.
Hmm.
You know, the steps that Kennedy has taken this past year, uh, let's see, he came in February.
Hmm.
Um, by at least April or May, he was being beat up on, not just by the ones that you expected, but by
Right,
the COVIDians,
right,
and by others who were saying, he's not doing what he promised. And I kept trying to tell people, have some patience, have some freaking patience. It's been 3 months. It's been four
yeah,
months. He has to lay the groundwork. He's a very intelligent guy. He knows what he's got to do. He's got to lay the groundwork. He's got to set the pattern, and he's got to get the right people in the right positions. And then once he's got all that framework done, then he can start going. And I think we're there now. I think we got the
right.
framework down, and now we can really start moving forward on a lot of these issues.
Absolutely. I mean, there were so many things that Secretary Kennedy was confronted with as soon as he was confirmed. February 13th, confirmation vote, he was confirmed, sworn in as Secretary of Health and Human Services, probably one of the most covered secretaries of Health and Human Services, and the most visible advocate for personal health that I think we've ever had. Not a doctor. Most secretaries of Health and Human Services since the agency was made have not been doctors. Okay, so,
Only three that I know of. Only
right,
three.
right.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And so he gets to work right away and he cares and he wants not only, so we have an outbreak of measles in Gaines County, Texas. He's sending boots on the ground to do things and to be able to help, with these particular children. But he's getting pushback from his own agency. He's getting pushback from Susan Monterez in the CDC, who would not talk, about the fact that when you have pneumonitis caused by measles, that it helps, and has been shown anecdotally over and over again to help with, giving inhaled steroids like budesonide and albuterol. And boots on the ground, we're doing that. I mean, we
And
had
vitamin A.
and vitamin A, absolutely. Vitamin A was being airlifted, in quantities to give to the children of Seminole, Texas, in Gaines County in West Texas, by individuals, that cared about that. Um, he hit the ground running. When the hepatitis B vaccine became a joint decision between the practitioner and the parent, and the COVID shot for children became the joint decision for practitioners and parents. then, it was like, okay, things are starting. But when the vaccination schedule changed so drastically, it's like, wow, this is really, really happening. And, we're just seeing the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah, you posted on X recently showing a graphic of how the schedule had changed from
Hmm.
what was it, 90 something doses to 50 something doses now or something like that?
Right, right. It went from, 78 plus to down to, gosh, it was less than 50. And six of the original, I think six plus, it's more like seven of the original vaccines, types of vaccines, now instead of being sort of required slash recommended, were joint decision.
Yeah, and to all of you out there who might even a little bit, I doubt there's many that would watch this program that would do that, but who want to make the comment, or if someone else makes it, you can call them out on this, that Secretary Kennedy has now taken away these vaccines from people. He hasn't taken away any vaccines from you.
No.
It's not on the schedule, which means it's not
Mhm.
mandated for certain situations, but at the same time, you can still get these things. If you want to inject yourself and your kids with these, you have that choice, which is as it should be. You get to make the decision,
Right.
and it's not forced on you. So,
Here's what will happen. Large vaccine manufacturers will lose money. They will not have sales for these particular required vaccinations. That's what will happen. That is the net effect of that. And I think that we will see many, many healthier children, much, much healthier children. Michael, when I look at children who are unvaccinated, I do not see a demographic that's really healthier. I'm sorry. It's one of those things that's like I report. I'm not, I do have a vaccine injured child. I have to lay those cards on the table. Um, I do work for Children's Health Defense. I have to lay that card on the table. I saw the health on the unvaccinated when I was losing money for the health freedom movement. I saw that. I started to see it, started to study it of completely unvaccinated children in 2017 and 2018. I was volunteering. I was working for a university in Redding, California, and started to report on the health of the unvaccinated. You do not see healthier kids.
well, you have been absolutely brilliant at making segues this whole time.
So sorry. Is that good?
That's good.
Okay.
So, the book that you helped write with Secretary Kennedy, Vax-Unvaxed, amazing book. It's an amazing book. This is one of the books that if you are creating a library of anti-vax books, or let's just say vaccine information books, this is one of the ones you have to have on the shelf because it is packed, and I mean jam-packed, with research studies to look at the issue of vaccinated children versus unvaccinated children populations. And it's really the only collection that like this. It's the only
Mhm.
collection like this. And trying to find these types of studies. Here's something that's interesting, and I know that you're going to really connect with what I'm going to say. I know you've experienced this firsthand, but a lot of people who have not been doing the kind of deep dive stuff into vaccinations as long as you or I have may not have noticed this. But if you think about doing a Google search in 2005, 2010, when you typed in such and such about vaccines, you could pretty much find whatever you wanted coming up, even on the first
Sure.
page. But starting at probably around 2015,
Hmm.
that started changing. And now the only thing
Absolutely.
you get is whatever the government wants you to see. That's it.
Hmm.
That's the only thing you get. And so when the average person is trying to fact check you or me, and they go to Google and trust what they're getting on the front page, what else are they going to think? They're going to think, oh, well, hey, look, there's nothing in there except for everything that says that you're wrong.
Right.
And the only way you can really find that is to do the real deep dive, which is maybe going 40 pages back or going to Yandex or something else to look at a different search engine. Or if you really want to get good, you can go to Google Scholar and actually get real research, right?
Right.
But the
Type
average
in
person,
William Parker on Google Scholar. Okay.
yeah,
Type him in. Type in Anthony Mawson on Google Scholar. James Lyons Weiler on Google Scholar. Type in Brian Hooker on Google Scholar. Yeah, you'll see it. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I use Google Scholar religiously. It's one of my go-tos for looking for stuff. And that's doesn't matter what it is, whether it's nutrition research or it's something else. If you want the actual research, go to Google Scholar. It gives it
Hmm.
to you pretty unbiased. But if you go to
Right.
Google, what the hell? You don't get anything.
No, no, I wish that I had, Sergey Brin on speed dial. Okay. He, they're being throttled. I don't know if he's personally throttling the information, but the information is so highly censored. I know that if I Google my name, yeah, I've done it a lot. Uh, I know what's
Probably
going to
not the
rise.
best thing to do sometimes, I'm assuming.
Yeah. I know what's going to rise to the top, my Wikipedia profile, and that is just full of lies. So
And owned by someone else, right?
owned by someone else.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so, yeah, it is. I mean, if you really, if you want to see what's sort of bona fide, the sort of medical research club, go to PubMed and put my name in, or go, and put some of these other individuals' names in. Yeah. The quote unquote anti-vaxxers, scientists and researchers, like my colleague Carl Jablanowski, poor
Yeah.
guy, we recruited him from the University of Washington, and go to Google Scholar and see what is being published by vaccines. Go to PubMed. You will see Vax-Unvax studies. I did a Vax-Unvax study with a medical journalist and researcher, Neil Miller, in 2020. It's in the public domain on PubMed, and you'll see these studies. You'll see Mark and David Geyer. You'll see, and when you point that out, then they'll say, well, it's not in Lancet, it's not in JAMA,
That's
it's
because
not
they
in
won't
the
let it in.
New England Journal of Medicine. Well, I have a rebuttal of a paper in JAMA Pediatrics about the flu shot in pregnancy. So shut your face.
Back and I don't know when this would be because I don't know when Wikipedia first came onto the scene. Had to be early 2000s, obviously. Um, but I remember one of my first forays into Wikipedia was to look up the page that they had on chiropractic. And that was my first eye opener to say,
Oh,
this
poor
thing's a
guy.
this thing's a piece of shit.
Well, right.
And then I did a deeper dive into that because what I did is I went and looked as to who ran the page because I was like,
Hmm.
who's the effing moron who's saying these things about chiropractic on the chiropractic page? And so I went through the settings, whatever, to go to find who ran the page. And have you ever heard of a organization called Quackwatch?
Oh yeah, yeah. They
It was
report a
someone
lot.
from Quackwatch
Right.
who's an
Yeah.
anti chiropractic organization, and they were running the chiropractic page on Wikipedia.
Hmm. I thank God for chiropractic. I get to hang out with, the people that have been doing chiropractic and reporting about chiropractic for eons. I have I have a local health freedom friend, Maria Salas in Reading, who is a chiropractor, does absolutely amazing job. There are people doing chiropractic for autism that are doing wonderful, wonderful work. I've worked and I've had on my webcast on CHD TV a lot. Dr. Nancy Tarlow, who's just a highly experienced chiropractor, um, and so many individuals that started in chiropractic or have worked in chiropractic, doing chiropractic on infants, very, very
Yes.
gentle. a guy named Dennis Harper out of Orofino, Idaho, fixed a shoulder injury of mine that I had had since I was 22 years old by doing acupressure on my spine at a conference. And I hadn't been able to sleep on that side for years. That's the side I sleep on right now.
Right. Yeah. My first, my initial foray into vaccines began in 1998.
Hmm.
I was in chiropractic college, and I was at the same time doing a fellowship in pediatrics while I was also getting my doctorate.
Right.
So I was doing a fellowship in the International Chiropractic Pediatrics Association, and as part of the fellowship, we had to study vaccines. Now, the way that we were studying it was a pretty traditional way of studying it. It was, here's
Right.
vaccines. But the person who was the instructor was wise enough to say, there's another side to this, and everybody should know both sides to it. And so instead of saying be anti-vaccine or be pro-vaccine, it was kind of saying, here's the information, and now you do your homework. And that's really what kind of led me to start looking at all this stuff. And I will say that I thank God every day that I had started that journey when I did.
Right. And the underlying theme is, you know, uh not not just not to vaccinate. It is to avoid the toxic soup that we live in because we're exposed to so many different neurotoxins. There are, and I'm not correcting you, Michael, but there are children who have regressed into autism that have never been vaccinated.
Oh, sure. Yes.
There are neurotoxins. There are connections between coal-fired power plants and mercury emissions and autism. There are connections to other scenarios with acetaminophen and autism. And so, yeah, we need to push back on the toxic soup. When my son was diagnosed with autism, did his first metals test, he was high in mercury, off the charts. He was high in aluminum from vaccines. He was high in antimony from fire retardant clothing and blankets that
Interesting.
are
Yeah.
in baby clothes. He was high in arsenic, which we would get arsenic warnings from our water supply, from municipal water where we lived. And so, yeah, he was a hyperaccumulator of metals because of MTHFR,
Yep.
because of another gene called ApoE.
Yep.
And so we knew that toxins were especially bad for him. What's the best way to get a toxin is to get it vaccinated, 100% absorption. 100% absorption injected into the body.
Yeah. No, 100%. Yeah. That this is like at the beginning of the conversation, we said it's a multifactorial situation.
Right,
You
right.
know, that this is one of the, the arguments that once again, the I wish I had better language, the pro-vax with it, whatever I call them,
Mhm.
the apologists, the vaccine apologists.
That's a really good, great
Yeah.
term. That's a good way to put it. Yes.
They like to say that, that it's a lopsided argument that we're just saying this, but we're not just saying this. I
No.
mean, there may be some people that are, but we're saying that this is part of it, and you're denying anything about it, and that's the part that we're screaming about. And it's probably not this; it's probably more like that. Uh, but
Beautiful
yeah,
human physiology is complex and elegant. When human physiology goes wrong, it's complex and it's messy. It's messy. It's not
good point.
just, yeah, yeah, it would be great if things in life were binary, but you look at how fearfully and wonderfully made and all these enzymes and these processes and, related to genetic transcription and translation and repression and all these things that are going on. When it goes wrong, it's messy. It's not just one thing.
Yeah, 100%. Uh, in chiropractic, there is the philosophy of chiropractic, or chiropractic philosophy, and in that there are 33 principles. And one of those principles is the principle of innate intelligence. And innate intelligence, according to the chiropractic philosophy, is the inborn intelligence that we are created with that basically runs the show.
Right.
and that it is always at 100%. It always knows what to do to make you healthy. However, there is a limitation, and that's matter. Matter has a
Mhm.
limitation, and the matter that we are made out of has that limitation. It can be faulty, but that's what creates those roadblocks. If we remove the roadblock, we allow innate intelligence to do its job, the body heals. To the limitation of the matter. It heals to the limitation
Right.
of the matter. If you cut your finger off, it's not going to grow the finger back, but it'll heal where the finger was cut, right?
Right.
And so that, I think, when you talked about the amazing chiropractors, one of the things that creates that in our profession is that philosophy that begins the conversation when we are going through our education. Here's the starting point of our conversation. We're going to start with this idea of universal intelligence. We're going to start with this
Right.
idea that there is innate intelligence inside your body, with your body having the power to heal. And really, your job is to remove the blockages and then just stand the hell out of the way and let the body take care of itself.
I love that. And, I've heard that from, starting with Nancy Tarlow, Dr. Haig John, who is a chiropractor who works in Melbourne, Florida, specifically with infants and children. Um, the luminaries. I forget his last name. You might know him. I think he's the president of Life University in Atlanta. Gilles. I can't remember his last name, but
It used to
you
be
know,
Ron Oberstein. It's a new person now. I don't know who it
yeah,
is.
yeah,
Yeah.
he's so wonderful, and he's involved in MAHA, thank God. And you hear about this restoration of health and taking out the roadblocks for this innate intelligence to restore health. It's genius. It's absolutely, you know, flies in the face of, Western medicine and these little fixes that these medications that you need to be on a lifetime, and then you're on your maintenance dose of medication rather than curing you. And so, no, no, I'm so thankful for that knowledge. I mean, it just the first time that I heard it from Nancy, the first time that I heard it from Haig John, it just kind of set me on my ears. So good.
Yeah. It is really what brought me into chiropractic and what fired me up. I can't say that before I went to chiropractic school, I was anti-medicine at all. I never really
Hmm.
liked taking medication, but I was never really thought about it. But I didn't really understand that idea of vitalism versus mechanism
Right.
as a philosophical principle until I got into chiropractic college. Um, I've taught for over 20 years. For three of those was at Life West,
Oh, great.
and I taught philosophy there, and I also
Hmm.
taught spinal anatomy. Uh, and then I've taught anatomy and pathophysiology over the past 20 years. But teaching philosophy was probably my most the thing I loved the most, and that's because it really gets to the heart of everything that we're doing. And I'll circle that back around because to me the hardest thing that we have to do with our core topic here has to do with changing paradigms.
Hmm.
It has to do with changing people's ways of looking at health and
Right.
looking at that. So, any comments on changing paradigms? How would we do that?
Well, first of all, I'm thankful for Life's West. I've actually had some of the graduates that I had from an undergraduate biology program, where I taught in Reading, end up going to Life West and then becoming chiropractors and being part of that, sort of the health freedom movement. It couldn't, and it was sort of me being undercover as, this university professor, and then sort of quietly cheering them on to go to Life West. But philosophical, it is so different. We're raising up health as a paradigm. Health is not being sick. Health is being healthy. Okay. So, if you focus on the sick and I have a hard time with that, because I'm an engineer and engineers, I'm a biochemical engineer. So I'm always picking things apart, almost like trying to diagnose what's wrong with my car. And I love the philosophy. Okay, let's remove that and just let the body heal itself, rather than saying, oh, the body is innately flawed and it's bad, And so, therefore, it's going to have to be on an SSRI and a benzo for the rest of its life because
Yeah.
it's innately bad and it's aberrant. I love the people who are looking at autoimmunity and restoring the immune system to its normal state so autoimmunity goes away rather than suppressing the immune system for life. To me, that is so absolutely wonderful. Let's not fix a broken, flawed body. Let's take the flaws out and let the body fix itself.
Yeah.
Love it.
That's the power of detoxing.
Hmm.
You detox the body, get the toxins out of there, get the heavy metals removed, and those obstacles are gone. Watch what happens. That's the beauty of Dr. Pompa's message, and he speaks it so
Hmm.
eloquently. His wording in that topic is better than anybody that I've heard. He has a great way of putting that message out there. So, um, yeah.
I'm so thankful. I am, and these modalities, um, I've never had a chiropractor look at me and say, yeah, you should quit your Western medicine, doctor. Uh, I see individuals in these health freedom modalities, whether it's a naturopath, homeopath, chiropractic, that are working and they're working in order to restore health. But I don't see the backlash of, that you see on the flip side. On the flip
Oh
side,
yeah.
Western medicine practitioners saying, "Oh, well, don't bother with that."
Yeah.
That happens way, way more. And I'm sorry to
100%.
say that.
It's true though. It's 100% true. Absolutely. Absolutely. Um, have you ever heard of Wilkes versus the AMA?
Well, know the AMA and the American Academy of Pediatrics really implicitly, but I'm not familiar with Wilkes.
I'm not going to get into it here. I'm gonna have you look at it, and
I will.
you can message me at some point and tell me what you thought about it. Look up Wilkes Wilks Wilkes versus the AMA,
Okay.
and it's an eye opener. It's an eye opener.
Yeah, yeah. No, no, and I love that, and talking with you and interacting with a lot of these professionals. I mean, they're lifelong learners, so yeah, let's learn new stuff.
Yeah.
You know,
I
settle it would in some days it'd be wonderful if settled science was true because then I could sit back and relax. Everything's changing. Everything is changing. So
uh,
you got to keep learning.
yeah, all the time, and that's with every topic. I mean, look at nutrition, right? Look at all this
Right.
changes that Senator Secretary Kennedy is making now with nutrition.
That's
Which
so exciting.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, these are things when you think about the natural communities, the alternative communities, we've been saying for decades, get the food dyes out. We've been saying for
Right.
decades, get the excitotoxins out, get the hydrogenated oils out, get the bad seed oils out. We've been saying that for decades. And the
Hmm.
whole time, that mechanistic universe that we were just talking about has been saying, there's no science to prove that this is bad for you. I'm like, you don't have to have the science to know common sense. This stuff's crap. You got to get out of your system.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Aspartame is good for you. Really? Oh my goodness. Sucralose? Hello. Let's get, these artificial ingredients that the human body has adapted for eons and eons and eons, and adaptations are towards a natural food supply. I mean, if we throw in these toxins and we change it and we just screw up the system, then the reaction is predictable.
Yeah, and we talked about removing obstacles, right, from
Yeah,
health. That's adding obstacles, right? Everything you fit into that.
exactly.
So
Exactly. I used to be addicted to Diet Coke. Come on.
I've often said that if there was any product that I could put it into a rocket and send it to the sun to be destroyed, it would be sodas. Soda's
Hmm.
the one thing that I would just say is the one thing that just is so god awful and addictive is right. Absolutely.
Right.
And that's on purpose.
It
Yeah,
is.
that's on
Oh,
purpose.
oh, oh, absolutely. Totally. Complex carbs and sugars, the whole, cereal industry, And I thank God that they're making baby steps and they're taking out artificial dyes and artificial ingredients. But look at, imagining having a Secretary of Health and Human Services that's healthy and that can do, 72 years old and he's running around and he's doing all these pull-ups in airports. Oh, God help me if I had to do one pull-up.
He's 12 years older than I am, and he can kick my butt in exercise, I tell you.
Oh yeah, yeah, same. He's 9.5 years older than me. Um, I've been on my own health journey. I've recently lost 50 pounds. So happy,
Wow,
so
good for
much
you.
healthier. Yeah,
Yeah.
if we're gonna make America healthy again, maybe I should start at home.
Got to start at home. Absolutely. That's 100%. Well, there is a new way that I'm going to be. This is you're going to be the first. I'm experimenting with you.
Woo,
Okay. um,
cool.
did you ever watch the Actors Studio? You ever see
Hmm.
that? I loved that show. I loved that show.
Yeah, yeah. I never could catch it enough, but yeah,
Oh.
I love the actor studio.
And he always ended his show by asking a question, the same question to every person. Now, I'm not going to do that same question because that would just be
Hmm.
stealing from him. But he used to always say, "What is your favorite curse word?" You remember that? And the actors would say like "motherfucker" or whatever, right? And then they
Yeah.
would explain why they liked their favorite cuss word. And that's how he ended
Yeah.
every show. So
I was raised Baptist, so it was always sort of, the edgy things that I might be able to get away with in youth group, like saying, crap, piss, or turd. They were edgy, but maybe you could hear them on TV. So yeah, those are the
well,
three.
and I appreciate that. My foul mouth has gotten me in trouble more times than I probably need to have. Um, with that said, as we start to wrap things up here, I'm going to ask you a couple of questions.
Sure.
Uh, the first one is, what is the thing that annoys you the most?
Settled science. Really,
Ah,
honestly, it's nails on a chalkboard. Nails on a chalkboard. When people tell me, well, this is a paradigm and it's been settled and it's been argued and the argument is done. And so, yeah, that's my biggest annoyance.
I am with you on that one. Boy, I connect to that. And then I'll end it with, what brings you joy?
Honestly, spending time with my family. My son loves to go on drives. We just got a CRV, so we have like our suburban assault vehicle. It is the Honda CRV. It's a suburban assault vehicle, and it has great speakers. And we sit and we listen to an eclectic collection of 80s contemporary Christian music. And I sing at the top of my lungs, and my family doesn't mind. That is nirvana for me.
Oh. So you said Nirvana. So what music are you singing at the top of your lungs?
Oh my goodness, it's really an eclectic collection, like people like Michael W. Smith. Oh my goodness, he's older than me, but he's still around and he's appealed to teenagers and so how do you do that? And then and then these sort of one-hit wonder new wave groups, the Go-Go's,
Now you're speaking my music.
ABC,
You're speaking my
Madness,
music. Oh,
Talking Heads,
in
things like
excess.
that. In excess. Yeah, I went through a whole Australian phase, but yeah, absolutely. Anything that's contemporary Christian, Gary Chapman, Stephen Curtis Chapman, all the Chapmans. There's a lot of contemporary Christian Chapmans. I don't know why. But yeah, singing that stuff, Sandy Patty, singing that stuff to the top of my lungs. And it's very eclectic because it's like the antithesis of new wave.
But it touches your heart in some way, and that's why you
It
connect to it.
does.
Yeah.
Absolutely
Yeah.
absolutely touches, pulls at the heartstring. Lyrics are things that I need to hear every day. And then I can take a break and listen to the Thompson Twins.
I love that. I'll share something with you. And one of my proudest moments, my daughter, who's a total angel, um, she she has been a sponge with me as far as my music taste. She's really,
Hmm.
when she put a Smiths poster on her bedroom wall, I was like, oh, my daughter. I passed it on.
That's
Uh,
great. Absolutely. Absolutely. So, so good. The new wave stuff just sort of bounces off my son and doesn't penetrate.
bounces off my son too. So
Yeah.
we're simpatico there too. So
Right, right. But he puts up, I asked him one day, I mean, he can't, he's a non-speaker, he communicates with the letterboard. And I said, I'm sorry you sing so much in the car. He's like, oh, I don't mind it so much. I'm like, oh, you're my best friend. So yeah, because you got to sing along.
you and I, man, I think we'd make a pair in the car together. We'll have to do a road trip one of these days. We'll
Have
sit
to
there
do
and sing.
a road trip. I will make it to Cincinnati. I have relatives in West Virginia. We can head down to a road trip.
There you go. I love that. I love that. Well, Brian Hooker, I thank you so much for being on this show. This was a fantastic conversation. I really enjoyed it a lot. And I want to tell you for myself, and I'm sure I'm speaking for so many others, how much we admire your work and how much we appreciate what you continue to do for health freedom and the MAHA movement.
Well, thank you so much, Michael. It's been an absolute joy and pleasure. You make it so easy, so comfortable, and I'm really looking forward to your book coming out.
Yeah, we'll talk about more of that. So hang out after I sign out here, and we'll discuss a little bit. Okay.
Okay.
For everybody, thank you for joining. I hope you got as much out of this as I did. I do this because I love it and I love these conversations. So until next time, I'll see you on the flip side. Bye bye.